Okay, well, I'm glad everybody could come. I hope everyone is well, and I'm sorry that we can't be doing this in person and that we're just seeing a facsimile of everything, but I look forward to seeing you soon. So I'm going to be discussing Alex Katz's Dark Glasses. It's a work that is now in the Parrish, and I think Kara is going to show us the work, hopefully. Yeah, this is the portrait, and I chose this portrait because it's a work that I often overlooked, and I began to wonder why. So when I was a kid growing up, in the back of every comic book, there was something called the Draw Me ad, and Kara's going to show you the ad now. Right. So the ad always featured a very stylized profile of an attractive woman. And if you sent in $2, you would get a book that promised to teach you to draw and enable you to pursue a career as a commercial artist. Loved it. And I've always thought of Alex Katz, quite frankly, as the Draw Me artist. And it's just not, it's not just the similarities in the profile or the roots they both have in graphic arts, but it is the fact that the ad itself illustrates the absolute separation at that time between commercial art, advertising art, illustration, graphic design, and high art, art done by serious artists. And it was Alex Katz's intention to bridge that divide, but it wasn't easy. So we're back to Dark Glasses. Here we are. For one thing, it's huge. It's almost 9 feet wide by 5 feet tall, and the colors are strong and eye-catching. So there is an undeniable association between billboards and popular advertising, and it's an association that Katz wants you to have, because in any interview at all, he will always tell you how important advertising is to him: fashion models, luxury goods, even billboards. But I do think, as I titled the work, more than meets the eye, and there is. So let's take a closer look. Katz was born in 1927 in Brooklyn, where else, and no relation to the deli. He studied at Cooper Union and Skowhegan in Maine, and he retains close ties to Colby College there, has a home in Maine, and a studio in Soho. By the late 50s, Katz had been painting for quite some time, but he was discouraged, really despondent over the work that he had been doing because he felt he was repeating the past. And then he had a revelation. Although abstract painters and landscape painters had been going big for some time, he noticed that no one was painting large-scale portraits, and that is portraits in which, like in Dark Glasses, the head or the body is 2 or 3 times larger than they are in real life. Well, a light went off and Katz went back to the studio, and he destroyed in the next few months over 1,000 of his early works. And he set out on the path to becoming Alex Katz. We're not sure whether or not this portrait is a portrait of Ida. Ida is Katz's wife, and anyone who reads the biography quickly learns that she is also his muse. Over his long marriage to her, he's painted over 250 portraits of her. So I am actually going to show you a picture that is actually Ida. And it's a work that I chose from 1960, shortly after the Great Purge. Critics considered this work a breakthrough, and it is also one of Katz's most popular images. It's called The Black Dress. And here actually is Ida, and she's confident and chic in her Jackie Kennedy designer sheath. And she's at an art opening. This is really the milieu that Katz paints. It's the world of museum goers, dinner parties, the world he inhabits. But it isn't so much what is in that world as what is left out. And that is an agenda. This work is not a satire. It's not a political commentary. There is absolutely nothing here but a cold, dispassionate look at the world out there. Katz in my mind, has removed the third dimension, and he has even removed himself, his ideas and his emotions. And what is left is an objective universe. How does he make these paintings? It's kind of is fascinating, because we'll go back to Dark Glasses just for a moment to consider it. The work seems amazingly simple, but it's actually the result of careful preparation and sometimes months of work. He starts with a life model. He draws from a model at his studio and makes a sketch, and then he will create a more substantial but smaller work, and then begins a series of transfers. He takes the smaller work and he transfers that to a paper that's about the size of the finished canvas, called a cartoon. And then, in order to transfer that image to the canvas, he uses a Renaissance technique called poncing, which is essentially forcing pigment through tiny pinholes in that cartoon until an image and some details appear on the canvas. But after all that preparation, what he does is he actually paints the work in a single marathon session, sometimes lasting up to 12 hours. So I'm going to show you a picture of Katz in the studio with his paints, and here it is. And it's a glamour picture. It's a picture taken for a magazine, but you get an idea of his physical presence, and I think that's important. He is a fitness buff, and as a fun fact, he exercises sometimes up to 4 hours a day. But it takes an enormous amount of strength, which Katz has made sure that he has, to make something the size of a billboard. In any event, Katz is 93. He's still going strong. And over the decades, he has developed a style that is as uniquely Alex Katz as drip painting is uniquely Jackson Pollock. But rather than analyze the style any further, I think it's more rewarding to think of Katz as an artist trying to solve an art problem. And the reason I think that is because Katz is very articulate about what that problem actually is. And he says that it's his intention to render the very specifics of a landscape or a still life or a person with, and this is actually his own words, the minimum amount of information necessary. So they're very simple and thought out. His style has nothing in common with Donald Judd or Dan Flavin or any of the minimalists, but he adheres very strictly to their philosophy of less is more. So back to Dark Glasses. I think, and I hope you'll agree, that the picture just oozes modernity. I see it in a penthouse with lots of windows and glass and stainless steel furniture in my house if I had a big wall. But in any event, I was really surprised to learn that Katz felt it was an encounter with an ancient object that actually changed his life and set him on the aesthetic path he has followed throughout his career. So before the virus, 3 months ago, I had the chance to see that ancient object in person in Berlin. And for the first time, I got Katz. But more importantly, I saw him in the long call and response, that give and take between generations, even millenniums, that is the history of art. So here is that ancient object with dark glasses. Yes, it is, if you haven't guessed, the bust of Nefertiti. And I hope you can see the same striking similarities that I see between these two very far apart in time works. Because I can almost imagine the sculptor 3,500 years ago saying, you know, I'd like to render the queen with the minimum amount of information necessary in order to capture her royal enduring presence. Because I think of Dark Glasses as a woman who is a modern day Nefertiti, a kind of queen in designer shades. And in any event, I now see her rather than something that I bypass as an enduring presence. And I hope you can see it in person when we reunite at the Parrish, I hope shortly.